But I think there's another force at play here. I genuinely think that the U.S. deep state is terrified of a powerful India, and let me explain why.
Okay.
Because we're already seeing, for example, the Indian defense industry starting to make moves in Africa. They're selling fighter jets. They're, organizing joint exercises with African countries. We're seeing interest in Latin America towards buying Indian Tejas fighter jets.
Exactly.
And it's not just happening in the defense industry. We're seeing ADANI Group, which is, one of India's economic powerhouses, starting to launch major infrastructure projects in Bangladesh, in Sri Lanka, and now in Kenya. So we're kind of seeing India develop its own answer to the Silk Road. They're seeing that what China's doing with the Belt and Road Initiative.
Yeah.
They're seeing what Russia's doing with the Eurasian Economic Union. And they're also launching their own separate initiatives. So from the U.S. point of view, this is all very disconcerting because they're seeing that India could potentially bite into the pie that they've, successfully controlled for all these, not just decades, but centuries. Because I don't think the United States was ever seriously expecting that the Indians could give them a run for their money in Africa or a run for their money in Latin America.
Absolutely.
But that's slowly starting to happening. And I don't think that anyone in Washington wants it to reach culmination because they're already struggling to compete with Russia and China in these regions. Mm-hmm. If India also jumps in, then that makes it even more difficult for the United States because that provides local players with more options. And the more options they have, the less leverage the United States has.
Absolutely correct, Dimitri. And the role of the Indian diaspora is essential. In Southeast Asia, for instance, in Thailand, Malaysia, Singapore, Indians are, on top of the business class. In Eastern Africa, in Latin America as well, more and more. So, and in the case of Iran, fantastic. There is a very active business diaspora in Iran. And now, if they get their act together on the Chabahar port, which is part of the Indian Silk Road. And Chabahar in southern Iran will be the Indian gateway, not only to Afghanistan, but to the whole of Central Asia. So we're going to have Indian penetration in Central Asia as well, where the Americans are already fighting Russia and China. Same thing. But, it's always a question of underestimating in the case of Russia and China, adversaries, and your friends in the case of India. I remember Bangalore and Hyderabad in the late 90s when they were beginning their Silicon Valley, more or less. And nowadays, they have one of the most developed Silicon Valleys on the planet. And at the same time, remember, the Americans are saying, it's a mini Silicon Valley. No, it's not very important. Maybe for the local market, etc. No, now they have global reach as well.